Hello then, lads and ladies, namaste, and welcome back to another manga review. And today we are doing a second version of Sadako's story, and that is known as Sadako-San and Sadako-Chan. Now, Sadako-San obviously is the evil amalgamation of Sadako, and the little girl is apparently the reincarnation of Sadako. So, where we start off is Sadako-san, I shall say, basically meets this little girl in a locked up room. She curses her, and then it kind of leads into this conversation of like her being able to read Sadako's mind, basically, which is kind of not flushed out properly because they meet a fellow called Kazuma later on, and for some reason he's able to understand her as well. So it kind of made it look like she could read her mind, but for some reason Kazuma can understand them as well, which is quite strange because it even shows over a video that they don't actually understand what she's saying, so she has to like use a little Sadako to kind of translate, or use the teddy bear that's on Sadako's shoulder basically to communicate. So I kind of feel like they didn't like think about how like they can get her to communicate in that way, shape, or form. Whilst in the previous one, she just wrote down on with a little biro and a little portable tablet for them to use for her to communicate. That was more easily understandable. But anyway, little rant of that over. I just wanted to get that out of the way so you understand how she can communicate and how she can like communicate to people that don't know how to telepathically read minds all the same. It's interesting, nevertheless. Anyway, little Sadako basically talks to old Sadako that the mother of little Sadako is basically aware of her more than likely being the reincarnation of Sadako, which kind of brings a little bit of truth to the ending of this book. I know I'm just skipping to the ending already, where 6 months has gone by and she hasn't been cursed by Sadako. Maybe Sadako can't curse an already reincarnation of herself, basically. That's the interesting fact there. Or maybe it's just thrown in as a gag of like, oh, Sadako's having too much fun with little Sadako and Kazuma that she forgot to curse people, you know. The whole story basis is that she wants to become a video creator with this little Sadako version of herself, basically. They become video creators, they become famous streamers, so on and so forth, even though like using a phone and very little what's-its, basically, you know? How it's all filmed in one location, kind of like what I'm doing, basically. I thought about using my room, but honestly, I just prefer the downstairs thing, really. I've had 3 areas that I filmed in, and sometimes I've vlogged on the move, sometimes I've been out in different countries, sometimes I've been in different counties and stuff like that. But honestly, there's nothing that beats the warmness of home, basically, to be within one specific area with my boy behind me back there. So, to get that out of the way, she wanted to be a streamer, she wanted to be a video creator, so she can spread her curse around the world, basically. And she meets Kazuma later on, who is also a well-known video creator, roughly about 8 to 10k subs or something like that. He does vlogs, talks, does a couple of food things here and there, basically. And there's like this running gag with her and him where she keeps asking him to buy like this CRT VHS video TV. Or no, it's not a video. It's not a VHS. It's like a TV. You know, like those round glass like bubble type TVs. Those ones. Whilst LCD TVs, I believe, are the flat screens, more electronic types. Well, everything's electronic, but you know what I mean. Like the flat screen TVs are easy for her to go in and out of, basically. Which is also funny because she says like, I'm not technologically sound. Which is funny because she's able to manifest a videotape that you put into a VHSR, and then you can just crawl out of the TV that way. So that's also kind of like up in the air and like not really flushed out much. I mean, they try to explain it, but it's not very it's not easy to understand, like unless you're like reading it from the page, basically, because it shows that she can actually go in and out of other screens. Like there's this one moment where she's going to see Kazuma. She like comes towards the monitor. It looks like she's about to come out of it, but instead she just comes through his like apartment door. It's just, and he's just like, why can't you just use the monitor? Like, he's not questioning like, oh, you're magically here all of a sudden. It's just like, why can't you just use the monitor? You know, everyone seems okay with her like cursing people, so it's kind of like, okay, this is the norm, fair enough. I mean, I'd be shitting myself at this point if I'm seeing this woman just completely drenched, like fingernails completely ripped off, and toenails ripped off, and hair like coming down to her face, like coming out of the monitor. No, the thing I'm worried about the most is the fact that she's used my bedroom door and not come out of my monitor like a normal ghost, you know, as you do. So yeah, basically, I do like the way the story is going. Basically, it's a very short story. It's roughly about maybe 150 pages. Let me have a look. Not even that. No, it's quite short. It's very short actually. It's about 110 pages. It's a fun little read, I'm not gonna lie. Where it kind of meshes like the modernized society of video creators and technology with the old, basically. And that's why I always like was really drawn to Sadako, like in the Ring series, like when it came to like VHSs, basically, because I grew up with VHSs. I always had a VHS. I've still got one upstairs, and I still use it for whenever I want to like watch my ye olde Godzilla cheesy flicks and stuff like that, and some of the old classic films and stuff like that, you know. So that was my era, basically, in the 90s, growing up, like watching VHSs and stuff like that. And Sadako was done around about the time of when, you know, it became big, you know. Like the book, the novelization obviously was made before I was born, but to be able to grow up with that horror icon was really nostalgic for me. So to be able to cover a manga about it was quite good for me as well, because I actually, it brings me back to those moments when I was a kid watching it for the first time, you know, how I just crap myself. And it's funny as well because I play Sadako in DVD and I'm fine. I love playing Sadako. She's really good. I really like playing the Sadako in that, or the Onrei if you don't know what I'm talking about. And that's funny because when I play against her, I shit myself. I can't stand it. I can't stand playing against a Sadako because it's just those memories, man, of like seeing her come out of the TV for the first time and just like killing someone like with a heart attack. It just really did something to me. It was very odd. And then when the third film came around, it felt really tragic. I felt really tragic for her, unfortunately, because it was just such a horrible thing that happened to her, to be locked down in that well for 30 years. And they even talk about it. Like, there's a moment where little Sadako-Chan basically gives Sadako like a hair wash, some wax to put in the hair, some hairspray and all that stuff. She does like her hair. She has very beautiful hair afterwards, like especially like after 30 years of damp water and mud and spew and stuff like that from the well. It's nice to see like her have a little bit of shine to her face, basically. Well, I say face, you can't see her face, to her hair, basically. I kind of like the lightheartedness of this, but it kind of throws in the odd little joke of like, you know, oh, if I don't like something, I'll just curse it, basically. And that's what she kind of does with Kazuma. Like, oh, if you're not going to get this TV, then I might as well curse your sister. Because he's got a big sister that kind of watches his videos and supports him, basically. And there's even a small little clip where we actually see her watching the video of them two, or them three, basically doing a collab together. So it helps get the views out to more people, basically, so they can get to see the cursed video. And even she notices, like, why is that bear talking? That's odd. And not even going to talk about, like, why one person and this child are in this room together, like, surrounded by these, like, ceiling tags, which is mostly used to ward off spirit. And there's, like, this funny running little gag where she's always tired, like, she's huffy and, like, very tired because of the ceiling magic. Normally, that would exorcise them, or keep them trapped, or keep them out. Which is partly what the mother has done for little Sadako, because that way she can't ever leave, basically. But because the lock has been broken, she can leave whenever she wishes. But she doesn't, because she doesn't want to upset her mother. And that really brings me back to the first film, because little Sadako killed someone by a heart attack. because she thought that they were being mean to her or something like that, or they were being rude or something like that. So she killed them as a way of protecting them, basically. And unfortunately, it led to her committing suicide. And little Sadako, basically, the evil amalgamation of herself was locked in an attic, basically, whilst the other version of herself was able to live on, become a stage actress, basically. I'd love to talk about that a little bit more, but I really don't want to spoil the story because I feel like you should really go and watch the third film. Like, I normally don't like sequels and prequels to the original stuff, but I think with The Ring, like the third film, that was probably the best film I'd seen. That was probably the best film I'd seen because it actually made you care about Sadako. You know, not many people can say that they actually care about a killer in a film such as that, basically. Especially when the other characters that she's killed have been quite nice, kind, and calm up to that point. I mean, yeah, there have been the odd kills that have been justified, you know, out of like revenge, like especially in the third film, because God, does she kill a lot of people that do her wrong, and it is so satisfying. But then it's also tragic because she kills someone that's close to her, and it's really, really awful. I'm talking more about the film than I am the book. I'm sorry, guys. I just love the story of The Ring. It's so goddamn lovely. So I feel like because we don't see an awful lot of her in the first film, it kind of makes up for it in the second and third film, basically, and so on and so forth. Which she also, the author talks about in this book, like, you know, oh, well, I don't see much of her, like, in the first film. Like, you don't see much of me in the first film, so I just naturally blend into the background and stuff like that, which is cool and all. So it's kind of like jabbing at the original film for like not showing enough of Sadako, but I feel like that worked, you know, of having that mystery of like having this cursed video like randomly kill people and then having this spectral spirit come out of the telly to to kill them. It's more frightening when you don't know what you see, basically. It's kind of like that new film that's coming out, Prey, if you've seen the trailer. It looks good. I believe that's a Predator film, if you know what I mean, like with Arnold Schwarzenegger and the Yacht. I think they're called Yautja. I think Yautja, I believe the actual name is for them. But if you've obviously seen the Aliens vs Predators film, you know what I'm talking about. It's based, I think, in North America in the early 13th, 14th century, I'd say, roughly around about the time of Native American times of when they were around in the country of America, and just the wildness of North America in that time. I might not go and see it because it just looks like an amalgamation of mess that Hollywood has just thrown together to just like ride off of the back of the name of Predator. So I might not go and see that because most films these days are just not up to scratch. I want to see Northman. And I want to see the second film of Godzilla vs. Kong because I think that'll be interesting. The director for Godzilla vs. Kong said we are going to do more kaijus, less humans. What I want to see. We want to see more big cheesy boss fights between kaijus. That's what I want to see. And Northman looks good because I love my Viking culture. I absolutely love my Viking culture, like my finger tats, and I've also got a new tattoo on my neck that I will show you at a later date, maybe when I do a story time later on within the year. I kind of want to work my way up from my legs to my hands and my forearms, my chest, my back, and then my neck, basically. So that way it's all in order and I don't like accidentally repeat tattoos or something like that. Well, I shouldn't do. I mean, I'm not that silly. I should remember which tattoos I've done and which I haven't. So, book is interesting, very funny sometimes. It kind of plays off of the whole. It kind of jabs itself in the face when it kind of says like, oh, you know, all video creators are loners and people who are quite normie-ish type, you know, they're quite basic in a certain sense. And I like that. I kind of like how we're living in a time where technology is so overpowered and so overly done that we forget that sometimes it's just nice to have a conversation one-on-one with one another. And I like how you can kind of see that with Sadako-Chan and Sadako-San, basically, because the little Sadako obviously misses her mother. She feels like she's been bad. She feels like this is her fault for being the way she is, unfortunately. And Sadako-San is there to basically act as the replacement for the mother. Well, not a replacement, but she's meant to be there to give the care to the little one when she needs it. And Sadako-San basically is a representation of that, because she feels like even though she can't curse people, at least she feels like she's needed, basically. Because I felt like in the original series she kind of wanted to feel special, she wanted to feel needed, basically, but it kind of got taken away from her and she got taken advantage of in many awful ways, basically. So I kind of like the more light-hearted version of this, really. I mean, I love the previous book because it showed, like, okay, this is a dark universe, it's dystopian, we have to end it dark, we have to keep it dark, because it's, like, going back to the original of, like, what Sadako is, she's still an Onryo, she's still a vengeful spirit, she still has to curse people. In this, it's kind of like, we can just skip the curse. So it's like, no, you don't want to skip the curse because that's her character, you don't want to take away from that. That's part of the reason she's an Onryo, is because of vengeance. And it doesn't matter who she kills, innocent or, like, worthy of revenge, she's basically letting her anger out on the world for keeping her trapped in a well for 30 years. So I feel like this book could have benefited a little bit more from the more volatile version of Sadako, like on certain people that maybe didn't deserve it, to really bring it across to the fact that this is an Onryo that they're dealing with and not just some, like, light-hearted character that you see in a book usually. I mean, I don't know, it's kind of got that, like, hit and miss vibe with it. It's a hit because it covers, like, certain basics of, like, video creators and, you know, the unnecessary need for, like, viewers and subscribers and all that. Not that I'm not appreciative of you guys watching my videos, I really do appreciate it, but it's not something that I'm 100% gung-ho about, basically. I don't care if I have 1 million subscribers at the end of the day, because I'm just here to give a video to you guys to enjoy and for me to basically bide my time with, basically. It's something to help with my mental health, and of course it also talks about, like, how you overwork yourself, how some people die from doing stunts. You've seen the odd stupid video where some guy jumps from a building to another one, or some guy does parkour and it goes wrong. That stuff like that. You know, it's like workplace health and safety and stuff like that. So I kind of like how it digs at that, basically, how we've become a little bit too reliant on video creating and technology and stuff like that. Because I feel like we have to be brought back down to earth sometimes, basically. So I like it when it does that, but I just feel like it took a little bit too much away from the character, from being a bit too normal, if you know what I mean, because she's not technically normal. She comes from a different time period, so you think she would, like, act differently because of the time period she was born in. I believe she was born in 1960 something, 50 something. I can't remember the actual date of her birth, but at least from that time they acted different, and she was very different because she was very seclusive, she was shy. She was, well, at least the human side of her, like the other twin side of her, whilst the evil amalgamation of her was just very vengeful because of how she was locked away for a long time and then put away into a well, basically. Whereas the other one was just shy and reclusive, basically. So I feel like this character is a bit too... you ever seen, like, those comedy skits where it's like, you know, there's always the comedy gag guy, and then there's always the clear-headed one that kind of, like, bops the other one on the head. She's like that, basically. Like, she'll sometimes give a quip, and then sometimes she'll be the one that's being quipped to, and then she'll, like, give you, like, a normal comment as to say, like, oh, well, I don't think that's the right thing, or, like, you know, oh, that's a little bit silly of you, but then she'll do something silly, and it's kind of like contradicting herself. And I'm going a little bit too hard in on the novel, but honestly, when you're going to cover a huge horror icon and try to make it silly and comedic, I can understand what you're trying to do, but for me, it just takes away from the character itself, basically. I'm not saying that, you know, she shouldn't be comedic. I mean, I like what you try to do, try to make it fun and, you know, interesting, whilst also adding a good story of emotion tied to the little one with her, basically. But again, it's just the way I see Sadako. Basically, I see Sadako as this tragic girl that unfortunately lost her life, got trapped, and just took it out on the world, and too rightly so. Basically, the world that we live in, unfortunately, is dark as it can be, but that doesn't mean that there isn't light out there, basically. And so with the little one, it shows basically that no matter what life throws at light, look at the picture, look at the contrast between the two of them. If this doesn't show light and darkness, I don't know what does. This is the innocence of what we saw with little Sadako-Chan for the first time. And then as she got older, she got more exposed to the world, got more exposed to its cruelty and the people that have been cruel to her in one way, shape or form. And it's turned her into this. It's turned her into a revengeful Onryo. And I feel like that's something we can learn from the book, at least, when it comes to people, the world, and just how everything gets thrown at us. It's what we do with it that matters, basically. And I like with what Sadako-san has done is that she's able to replace the whole cursing headcanon thing with helping this little one cope with her situation, basically, by making videos. It's a way of escapism, which I use this as, basically. This is my form of escapism sometimes. Well, it's a part of my escapism, like, minus like working as a martial artist and so on and so forth, basically. So it's something to look upon as to think like, this is a very wholesome thing, but it's also very dark in places as well, basically. It's a short story, you can interpret it however you like, but to me, it was a fun little novel about a little girl just wanting a mother to give love to, basically, and to her to give love back. And with Sadako-san, it was just how to get from one curse to another, but then finding out that, you know, there's more to life than just cursing people. So, yeah, they never did get that TV, by the way. They never did get that CRT TV, unfortunately. It kind of ends on an odd note as well, where she just says to her, like, oh, it's been 6 months and yes, they haven't cursed me. And Sadako just says, like, oh, well, I've been having too much fun cursing people and all that. So, yeah. Kind of an odd ending. I kind of feel like they could have at least continued this for, like, another volume or two, basically. Like, make some interesting little stories to go alongside of it, basically. But, yeah, that's fine. It's fine. It's a good little novel. Good little read. So, with that, lads and ladies, I thank you all ever so much for watching. It's been fun, as always, to talk about my favourite horror genre killer, good old Sadako. What I'm going to do tomorrow, I shall be putting out some Bloodborne, some God of War. It's been the same schedule for a while, and I'd like to keep it that way, so that way you guys at least have a video a day or two in advance to watch. And I will be doing, I know I skipped over Spy X Family, but I will be going back to that when the next book schedule comes around, basically. So what I want to do is I want to get God of War, Bloodborne, and maybe a little bit of First Class Trouble out with some DVD. And then I will do the Spy X Family 3rd volume, and then I will go and do another Tattoo Story Time. So that way you guys are at least got something to watch over the week, basically. I know I've been off schedule a little bit by maybe a day or two. I can only apologise for that because I've been having to do a lot of gameplay for God of War. It's a big game, so I've just platinumed it, so I've just managed to get that sorted, so thankfully that's all good and done. And if you're wondering about the Valkyrie fights, you'll see one, but you probably won't see them all, because I've basically just played the game for story and lore mostly. Combat was kind of meh, so you'll probably see an awful lot of combat situations that I just skipped, unless it's main characters and interesting ones, whether or not if they're commentary value. So I will warn you ahead of time, if you're watching for like the exploration and the combat, don't watch it. Can't believe I'm saying that. Don't watch my video if you're watching like for combat and shit like that, because you won't see it. If you want lore, and you want Viking mythology, and you want story-driven stuff with Atreus and Kratos and Freya and others, then give it a watch. I kind of want to do that rather than like waste 2 hours worth of me like running around exploring, picking up hack silver day in and day out for you guys, just so like, wow, this is riveting gameplay, you know. So with that, lads and ladies, I'll catch you in whatever I do next around here. So take care, my friends.